Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yoga Storytime Lockdown Edition. This story time, we are going to act out The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler using yoga. So, as you can imagine, this is a story about a teeny tiny snail who becomes friends with a great big blue-gray humpback whale. I'll see you over on the mat. All right, are you ready? So, this is a story about a tiny snail. A tiny snail who lived on a rock in a bay. And he would often look out at the water and think, wow, I would love to go out there. But all the other snails who lived on the rock said, what are you joking? You are much safer here on the rock. Why would you want to go out there? But still, the snail, he really wanted to explore the world. And so he wrote on the rock with his trail of slime. Let's do snail pose again. Lift wanted around the world. And one night, a great big gray-blue humpback whale came up to his rock and said, climb aboard my tail and we will go on a trip around the world. So the snail climbed aboard the whale's tail. Let's do a whale spout. Breathe in, and they went off on an adventure. They went down into the Antarctic, past great big towering icebergs, where they saw lots of penguins and seals. They went up to the tropics where they found fiery volcanoes. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Explode like those volcanoes. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. And in the tropics by the volcanoes, they saw turtles playing in the sand. Put your hands underneath your legs and make your turtles playing in the sand, hiding away when they get scared and coming out when they feel brave. And monkeys playing in the trees. And even dolphins playing in the water. So we're going to come down on our elbows, lift your butt up into the air, and we're going to come forward and back like a jumping dolphin. They went from the tropics through crashing waves. Let's make crashing waves. Let's bring our legs apart and crash. Crashing waves and into shark-infested caves. Let's make our sharks. Put your hands, interlace your fingers, and lift up like a shark. Doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. The snail got scared, and he brought his hands to his ears, and he rubbed his ears and said, it's okay, the sharks aren't going to hurt me. I'm here with my friend, the great big gray-blue humpback whale. And he calmed down, and he kept looking around, and here underneath the ocean waves, he saw an octopus. He's going to put one arm under one leg, and the other arm under the other leg. And let's make our octopus. And they also saw crabs. So put your hands behind you, lift up, and let's walk like crabs. Sideways. And they kept going. And they saw all sorts of animals on their adventure. They saw bears walking in the forests, and eagles flying high in the sky. We're going to cross our legs and cross our arms. And the whale, he felt safe on the tail of the whale as he waved hello to all the animals. Hello! But then came the day when the whale lost his way. They came to a place where there was a boat race. Let's do our boat pose, one leg up, two legs up, one arm up, one second arm up. There was a boat race, and there were so many boats making so much noise that the whale, he couldn't hear. And he lost his way. And he ended up getting caught on the shore. And he couldn't move because whales are too big to move on land. And the snail on the whale's tail said, "Oh my goodness, how am I going to help? I have to help my friend, but I'm just so small." But then he had an idea. He saw a house in the distance, and he went off and crawled towards the house. "I must save my friend the whale," he said. Well, that house was actually a school with kids sitting at their desks. Let's do chair pose. Imagine you're sitting at a chair. And the teacher at the board. And the snail, he climbed up the board and he wrote, leaving a trail, "Save the whale." And the kid said, "Look!" And the teacher called the fire trucks. The fire department and the fire trucks came. Woo, 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 woo. And they drove down to the beach. And they sprayed. We're going to take one leg and pretend that it's a hose and spray. Shh. They sprayed the whale to keep him wet. Other side. Shh. And the tide came back in, and the whale was able to wiggle back into the ocean. And the snail climbed onto the tail of the whale again. And everyone shouted, "Hooray!" as the whale and the snail swam away. Back to the rock at the dock, where the snail found all of his snail friends, and they said, "Wow, how time has flown, and look how much you have grown." And the whale and the snail shared their tale of all of the amazing places they went to visit. And you know what? The other snails, they got a little bit jealous and got an itchy foot. That's an expression that means that they wanted to go for an adventure too. And so the whale said, "Everyone climb on my tail." And they took off. The snail and the whale and all of the snail friends, and the whale lifted his head out of the water, took a deep breath in, and blew out his water from his blowhole. And the snails and the whale continued their journey around the world together. I love this story because it shows you how even if you're tiny and small and you don't know what to do in a situation that can be kind of scary, you can think about it and you can find a solution. And no matter how small you are, you can help your great big friends or your great big parents. So what kind of things do you like to do to help others? For example, do you like to help your parents cook dinner? Or maybe wash the dishes? Do you like to help your little brother or sister with bath time or reading or their homework? No matter how big or small you are, you can be the change you wish to see in the world, and you can help make the world a better place. Namaste. I hope you liked our yoga story time of The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler. I know some of you are going to say, those of you who know the story, but Marisa, you didn't actually read the story, and the way you told it is not the same as the words in the book. And you know what? You are totally right. It is really hard to remember all of the words in this book. So I am going to read it for you now. Because, like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite stories. Are you ready? This is a tale of a tiny snail. Oh, there he is. And a great big gray-blue humpback whale. This is a rock as black as soot. And this is a snail with an itchy foot. Do you remember what that means? It means he does not want to stay in one place. The sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock. As she gazed, she sniffed and sighed. The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. These are the other snails in the flock, who all stuck tight to the smooth black rock and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wiggle, sit still, stay put." But the tiny sea snail sighed and sniffed, then cried, "I've got it, I'll hitch a lift." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail that looped and curled and said, "Lift wanted around the world." This is the whale who came one night when the tide was high and the stars were bright. The humpback whale, immensely long, who sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tale of the humpback whale. He held it out of the starlit sea and said to the snail, "Come sail with me." This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far-off lands, with fiery mountains and golden sands. These are the waves that arched and crashed, and the foam then frolicked and sprayed and splashed the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. These are the caves beneath the waves, where stripy fish with feathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam around the whale and the snail on his tail. Those are pretty scary looking sharks, aren't they? No wonder the snail in our yoga story, was scared. This is the sky, so vast and high, sometimes sunny and blue and warm, sometimes filled with a thunderstorm, with zigzagging lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. As she gazed at the sky, the sea, the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand, she gazed and gazed, amazed by it all, and she said to the whale, "I feel so small." But then came the day the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar, making him swim too close to the shore. This is the tide slipping away. The whale's getting stuck. And this is the whale lying beached in the bay. "Quick, off the sand, back to sea," cried the snail. "I can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small. Then, "I've got it," she cried, and started to crawl. "I must not fail," said the tiny snail. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children in from their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling the class, sit straight, don't talk. This is the board, black as soot. And this is the snail with the itchy foot. A snail, the teacher turns pale. Look, says the children, it's leaving a trail. This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail saying, save the whale. These are the children running from school, fetching the firemen, digging a pool, squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. This is the tide coming into the bay, and these are the villagers shouting, hooray! As the whale and the snail traveled safely away. Back to the dock and the flock on the rock, who said, how time's flown, and haven't you grown? And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves, and of how the snail, so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery trail, saved the life of the humpback whale. Then the humpback whale held out his tail, and on crawled snail after snail after snail. And they sang to the sea as they all set sail on the tail of the gray-blue humpback whale. The end. See you next time. Bye.